Hi guys, how are you? It's Hispano. So you watched the title, so you know what which knives I'm comparing today. So let's get into it. So one of the knives, I'm gonna just lower the camera 1 minute, give you a better look. Okay. So we have the William Collins WCSK in 01 steel, and this is it has the old heat treat from William. That's one of the knives, and I have the the MSK1 is the other knife. This is the sheath that came in with MSK1. It's got a pretty good retention on the sheath, but you have the rattle, which I don't care, but I'm sure, you know, some people criticize that. What I don't like about the sheath is this kind of lock here, because I was trying to put it through my belt and it kept going this way and it wasn't going down, and you can't see what's going on. But when it's out, maybe because it was new, I don't know, but when it's out, now it works pretty good. This part here is kind of thin, Kydex. You see that? And I felt it on the cold here, that he almost felt like he wants to break, kind of, because it's a little bit too thin. It's thin Kydex compared, see? Okay. And it feels like, doesn't feel that great, but it retains the knife pretty good. I'm not saying that it doesn't. But I don't like this lock. So, enough with the sheaths. Let's look at the knives now. There's people that said that these knives are similar, but they're not. The actual cutting edge on this blade, it's here. And you have about, I'd say, at least an inch shorter blade from one knife to the other. So we're gonna start from pommel to tip, showing the differences. So this has the extended pommel, and I have more depth information about this knife on my previous videos, but I'll just go through it quick comparing to this knife now. The pommel of this knife is like, it's flat for, you could scrape and you could crush things. So, and it's pretty sharp. And again, if you don't like some spots that it's sharp, Blackie Thomas has a video that explains you guys how to fix the sharp edges when you don't, if you ever have it on your knife and you don't want it. Okay, so this is the way this knife is, and this is where this knife has the ferro rod scraper. Right on this, right this spot is for ferro rod. It even has a little flame showing you. See that? Okay, and that's the handle. This is kind of sharp. I think it's G10. It looks like G10. The texture on it, it's kind of, it feels like, feels sharp here, like right here. It feels sharp. And you see, like it takes wood off. You see that? So this needs a little bit, this needs to be smoothed out a bit. But the handle is roomy. It's a roomy handle, fits my hand, but the shape of it is not that great. Like these are a little bit, it's like a square handle, and these are sharp. So that needs some work. The bow drill divot, it's metal. That looks pretty decent. That looks like for somebody that uses the bow drill divot a lot. That's a pretty good idea for this knife. I think he said they have the 2 holes here to lash it. In case you ever want to lash your knife, you can use this, run a paracord and tie it, and I think even with here, and you can make it to a spear or some sort. Which on this knife, the bow drill divot, it's here, but the handle on this is way more comfortable. You have the contours, and it just fits on your hand so good, and it actually enhances the different positions for if you want to chop and stuff. Right here, you can choke back here, and you can chop, and you can put your pinky in there, and you can use this for quick chopping and stuff, like, you know, like pretty quick light chops. That's the idea of this, which here it didn't come with a lanyard, but I think you can just put a piece of lanyard, whatever you want, doesn't matter. And that doesn't feel bad this way chopping, okay? But yeah, I guess. But this whole thing here, I gotta know what I would like. If I would ever buy this knife and keep it, I would just smoothen these out. So now we're see the difference on the handles, the contours. This has a middle like a bubble, so it fits right on your hand, and you can just, okay. This is why I like this. This is why I prefer the William Collins handles, because of this, like all those contours that the handle has. And you can just a pleasure holding it. Okay, so this one has another position. This, the way that this has 3 positions is, you hold it here, you chop, you have your normal grip here, and then they have this choil that you could put your finger forward, and you could use the knife to get to the edge, and you could do some fine carving and some fine tasks with it. That's the idea of it. While on this one, you just go here like this. And you can, that's how you have your full control, like this. And I've used this knife so much that when I hold this knife, it's like you're getting a very pleasant handshake. You know what I mean? It's so comfortable, and everything about this knife, it's like fits to me like a glove. So that's the idea. That's the difference. So to do all your fine tasks, you move here. Which I was testing this knife earlier, and I found that because of this, when you're batoning, because I have so much more edge here, when you're batoning and this gets in the way, like it would be jamming and it won't let you split the wood, because this is like 1/4 thick knife, and it's pretty hefty knife, right? So this is all the cutting edge you have. It's right there. You don't have that much, you have only that much. So that's pretty much the design on it. The coating on this knife, it's pretty good. It didn't come out during all my testing so far. It stayed very close to the way it came in, but I guess I've only used it one time. now let's get to the things I don't like about this knife, okay? Like I said, I don't like this part here, that it's kind of sharp, okay? And I show you already how sharp, okay? That's one thing. Two, when you're batoning with this knife, it has a false edge here. See that? Okay? So when you're batoning, the baton gets into the wood here, and it doesn't actually transfer the hit you do with your baton. It more gets into the wood, and then it gives it a push, but not as much as I want to, because more than anything, it just digs in the wood. You see? Okay? And that was just light tapping it. So I don't like false edges. I don't know why would you have a false edge, especially on a survival knife, 1/4 thick, that it should be useful for batoning. And so I don't like that aspect of it. Okay, it only enhances looks, and I don't care how the knife looks. For me, like Pano, it's not about the looks. I want a function, and this, besides looks, it has no function. False edges, zero function. So I don't like that. Then I don't like the part here that it's not at least straight. It just goes out a bit, just like just like a Bowie knife. Okay, I don't know if you could see that. And when you're trying to skin, this won't be easy to control. My tip is gonna be digging in, okay? So that's two things I don't like. The jimping is pretty good. The third thing I don't like, this knife is smooth everywhere, okay? Everywhere is so smooth. That's the only area that I could scrape ferro on, and I'm gonna show you in a minute how this functions. But like, you wanna scrape anywhere on this knife, it's rounded off, smooth edges everywhere. And I think the idea is so it's smoother to control it, like when you're whittling. But it really doesn't work for me, especially for a survival knife. It would work for me for just a whittling knife, strictly whittling knife, and that's it. But it doesn't work for me for a survival knife. I much rather have the sharp edge like this knife has, and I could scrape my ferro out, I could scrape materials. And whenever I don't want my my rough edges, I could just, my 90-degree spine, I could just round it off wherever I don't like it. But for me, usually, most of the time, I keep my knife the way it is, the way it comes from the knife maker. About this knife, like I said, you're gonna see my previous videos about what I think about it. If there was anything wrong with this knife that I didn't like, I would have been already suggesting to William to change it. Everything I like about it, this knife doesn't have a drawback, like the sweet spot. So when I want to whittle like this near me, and I want to just do some tasks like this, there's no way you can do this with this knife. It's impossible. You have to it feels like I'm gonna cut my thumb right off, not just cut it. So because of this angle, it doesn't help. See, it doesn't bring the knife to the way I want because it's blocking me right here, and I don't have the freedom like the knife to move how I want it. I won't even get into the steel. This is D2 steel. I won't get into it. This is 01. Okay? See, 01. And where is it? Right here, D2. You see it? D2. Okay. What's wrong with D2? I have no problem with D2 unless this happens. When this happens, then I'm starting to have a problem with the steel. It has a little chip, I don't know if you can see it, right here when I was doing my testing. But I'm gonna show you guys again on camera. I'm gonna do some simple tasks with it and see how it's gonna perform. So right now they're sharp. Okay. Maybe I need to touch them up a bit. Let me get a ferro rod to show you the way they scrape ferro rod and some sharpening implements, and I'll be right back. Okay, so that was part one. So part two, stay tuned. Part two, we gonna sharpen them and we're gonna actually do some tasks with them. And at the end of part two, I'm gonna get into, we're gonna see how the steel held up. We're gonna do cutting test. We're gonna see how the steel held up and final thoughts. So thanks for watching, guys, and see you next time.